All right, how's it going? Welcome back to another tutorial. I'm finally doing another one. And today we're doing a tutorial / track breakdown. Let's dive into it. Yeah, and I wanted to make this a tutorial about how to embellish your tracks with a theme and how you can use whatever theme you come up with to really take your ideas and just get you through the process of writing the track a lot easier. So yeah, the theme with this one is obviously soda or fizzy drinks, as we say in the UK, but fizzy drink world sounds a bit shite, so I went with soda. Yeah, now, you saw me start this idea on the melodic rhythm tutorial, and it basically became this. So let's go through and let's just go like from top to bottom. I intentionally left this project exactly how I left it when I finished the track. So we've got like a ridiculous amount of channels and yeah, nothing's tidied up really. There's like bits of stuff. Yeah, for the authentic track breakdown experience. So let's go through all of our stuff. Kick, very basic stuff, I would say. Oh, we got a little like bop thing there, which is kind of a kick. Oh, and here's the tune, in case you haven't heard it for some reason. So yeah, typically when I'm doing this kind of rhythm kick clap combination thing, rather than its own separate snare, I will have a separate kick. You can see kick with snare here. And it'll be processed very slightly different to ensure that when that snare clap thingy hits at the same time as the kick, it's gonna feel as strong, sort of transient wise and brightness wise, as just the kick on its own. So you can see with this kick, there's just a tiny bit of the high end shelved off, and with the one that hits with the snare, there's a little bit more of a difference where I've taken more frequencies out to stop the click of that kick hitting with the snare. Very kind of subtle thing, but I do find it does help, specifically with the transient as well. Yeah, so this snare clap thing, this is just, you know, your usual kind of thing. I'm pretty sure that's on the Melodic Rhythm sample pack, or on one of the sample packs that's already available on Patreon. And there's a kind of like bit more of a tail there. I think originally I had it just this kind of just snappier clap, but I felt it needed a bit more tail. Very subtle. There we go. What else? What other snares have we got? We've got a regular snare here. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, so this is, I think, snare Harajuku from the various sample packs. Yep, I'll kind of pop that on its own channel in case I need to process it differently. And then we got a ghost snare, which is this offbeat snare thingy here. I just felt like that pattern needed a little bit more punch, so I wanted to back it up with a snare there. Yeah, actually, without it, it kind of sounds really not great. It feels just kind of, yeah, just like I've just copied the thing across, but with the snare, it feels more part of it. Like, more intentional, I would say. What else have we got? We got like big old Megaverb snares. Those are a lot of fun. And a pitched version of the Megaverb snare, which actually I tried to... I don't know if I tried to kind of match the pitch with what was going on. Not really, but it still kind of works because of that piano coming up. Yeah. What else we got? We got a little clicky thing. Yeah, it's just a finger snap sample. It's nice, actually. And yeah, so over here, we switched to a different kind of snare entirely. Yeah, so we got this thing. And we got like a rim shot. I believe that's a Cohen Sound sample from their Splice sample pack. And then we got this thing, which is, yeah, I think that's in the sample pack as well. One of mine. Yeah, so that sounds really nice in context. Additionally, we got like these, where would they be? Effects? Yeah. We got these kind of like pop sounds here. And this is our first element that is really like introduced because of the theme. So the theme is soda. So what kind of sounds can we associate with soda? We've got like fizzing, bubbles, popping, I don't know, drinking sounds, and also any kind of like extra interpretation of how the taste of soda sounds to us to put in the track once I came up with that idea. And so what that did was that gave me ideas for all of these different sounds to put in, and I'm like, okay, I gotta fit some pops in there. And so this is where they ended up going. So I think originally I just had it stop. Which works, but having those little syncopated pops, I think really adds like a nice touch percussively and also conceptually. Yeah, so they're a lot of fun. Tops, all the usual thing. I mean, the drums aren't going to be super interesting. Yeah, just a very simple hat on the offbeat. Yeah, a little open hat there. I generally try and keep the tops as complementary as possible with the basses with a tune like this. If I'm just going for like a wall of sound type deal where it's just like bah, the whole time, you can kind of get away with just having like a China cymbal just going just like a blanket load of cymbals across the whole thing. But with something like this that's a lot more intricate and has more use of like silence, I like using the tops as just more complementary. Yeah, and like things like that where we're going from this quite constrained quarter note business, this da 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 staccato thing where it kind of comes to a stop, like almost complete silence at points. Let me see if I can like capture that in a loop. Yeah, that's almost complete silence there. Yeah, so these kind of staccato hi-hats that make sense for here. But as things open out on this hit, reverb starts happening. We've got an open hat, which just kind of makes more sense. Oh, we got this little acoustic snare in here as well. I believe that's a combination of possibly Logic preset drums and Cohen Sound drums. I think I've just like bounced them down. Yeah, so let's get into... There's not anything super crazy interesting in the tops, but there is some frequency shifted stuff. Yeah, so I've just automated the frequency shifter on this reverse crash, and it becomes kind of almost more of a riser in that case. Yeah, so let's close these little folders. I think I started doing folders because this project just became too much to keep track of in the end. Let's go into the effects. So we have got... This is a little breakbeat thing. And you can see we've got a bit crusher with the downsampling gradually going up. So in a sense, it's gradually gaining resolution as it continues on. Without the bit crusher, I believe this is a bop sample from an artist called Bop who makes microfunk, which is a really cool genre you will definitely be seeing from me at some point. Yeah, from Splice, with a bit of bit crusher on. And yeah, I chose this because it's got an inherently fizzy quality to it. That like background fizz was just really nice. I was like, I'm having some of that. Yeah, and you can see I've added it into this section as well, with some delay just to add that kind of fizzy clickiness. And this is during the breakdown section. And a little bit more of the low end of that break as well. We just went over the pops, and we've got some other percussion here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, that's just a tiny little snare thing. Yeah, so what I really like, especially when using quarter note beats is to involve some syncopation, because if your main rhythm is just going to be dun 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 over and over again, you know, you like typical easy to headbang to rhythm, having a little bit of syncopation in there and throwing some stuff a little bit offbeat keeps things really like grooving along. So I got lots of that sort of thing. Yeah, so I got this can pop thing, which I made from from opening a can. Oh, there's a little like pop thing there as well. Yeah, I think this was multiple different samples. And I just found quite a tonal click to a can and just reverberated the shit out of it. Yeah, it kind of doesn't really make sense because you've got the can opening there, and this is two different samples. That's actually just a finger click, so it just adds to the kind of clickiness and the satisfaction of opening the can. Yeah, I knew I wanted to have that just as like the pre-drop thing, because the whole idea of the tune is that if we lived in a world made of soda, what would it sound like? And this drop is effectively the opening of the can and the explosion of the kind of like fizzy color base energy that's coming out. Yeah, my head does these things sometimes. Yeah, we got a nice like reverse kick into our first beat as well. So we get, without that, it's kind of comes to complete silence. That's cool too, but I wanted that like, whoa, sweeping. So yeah, and by putting these things on syncopated beats, it really helps. Yeah, there's other stuff later on that's also on those kind of like off beats. Let's see what else we got. We got some bass fizz. So these slurpy sounds, even if you might not like hear these kind of things in the background, you know, I wanted these basses to have more of a fizzy texture to them. I could have just used like some white noise or something, but I wanted to actually substitute that for actual like slurpy sounds, which I've layered together. You can only just barely hear it. But yeah, I feel like these things where you're reaching out for a certain tool that you often use, if you've got a concept in mind, you can go, okay, let's try and create something more fitting for the theme of the track that still does the job that I want to do. So I could have just done some white noise, but I went for some fizzy business instead. Yeah, so let's see what else we got. Can bubble. I think we got another bubbly thing. Yeah, just a little bubble thing. It's actually got some, it's got a tiny bit of evolution reverb, which gives it just a tiny bit of tonality and width. Yeah, it creates a really satisfying situation there. Yeah, you can see there that you need that width for that thing to really pop out. Yeah, let's see what else we got. We got a basic riser, probably. Yeah, usual stuff. Nothing too interesting there. Yeah, we got... That's a very, very subtle background element again, but I quite like this using a bit crusher and automating the downsampling to get gradually higher, like I did with the breakbeat earlier. And to me, that just sounds like bubbles fizzing in a can, but in like digital form. So yeah, you can see like any opportunity for me to use the theme, I'm trying to do that. And not only does that spark more ideas, but it also creates a more interesting tune overall, I would say. Yeah, so speaking of which, Soda Riser, let's see this. So that's not the soderiest. I think that originally was like a kind of fizzing sample that I turned into a riser. But I think this water riser is going to be a little bit more textureful. There you go. Any excuse to have some fizzy business. What else have we got? We got the reversed version of that. Works as a downlifter as well, and adds the little nice texture to what we're doing. The other kind of aspect I wanted to get across as well was sort of like an ASMR theme. Yeah, these kind of very, very close sounds. I just thought that would fit really well with a kind of like fizzy sounding tune. So yeah, but let's get into the more interesting stuff. I guess I'll just go like top down on all of this just to so we don't lose our place and I don't miss anything out. We've got this lead at the end here. Not sure what happened to the start of the MIDI in that section, but we got this part. Yeah, so this is a very simple massive patch, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so we got square wave, and we got the formant mode on here. And you can see that I've got a macro for vibrato and for the changing the formant here that I've automated so that it feels a little bit more alive. It's not just a square wave, there's more movement going on. So yeah, you can see here the vibrato goes up higher and higher. And similarly, the formant kind of goes up and then down again to give it more movement. And yeah, because this is like coming to the end of the track, we also have the reverb increasing and the decay of the reverb steadily increasing. We also have a harmony part for those last two notes, which is just the same patch, I think. Yeah, and then all together. There you go. What have we got here? We have a vocoded version of that breakbeat thing from earlier. It's actually not vocoded. I actually painstakingly went in. Where are these? Yeah. Yeah, here's all the convolution reverb impulses I used for this track. Available on the Melodic Rhythm sample pack. Yeah, so I actually went through and created a bunch of channels. I must have made 9 channels to put this breakbeat on, and then I plugged in to each of the space designers, the convolution reverb, each of these different chords so that it would follow the chord sequence. Very slow, gradual process. Could have just vocoded it, to be honest. That's how I made that. Let's see what else we got. We've got a metal ping. I believe this is a sound font. Oh no, it's massive. What am I thinking? How does this sound on its own? Yeah, pretty simple sound, it sounds like. It's literally a sine wave, and then I'm dialing in a square wave, I guess an octave below, as it goes on. The most basic sound you could make, practically. But the kind of sprinkly, sparkly nature of it really comes from this Valhalla verb and the stereo delay, which makes it sound significantly better. And I've reversed it because I will often, especially with something twinkly like that, I will reverse it to see how it sounds. And I usually go, okay, that's cool, I'm using that as well. So easy to make those kind of things just by kind of following that process. Yeah, additionally, it looks like I've also used this patch for this. So no, this is a sampler. So this should be, yeah, this is a sound font. So what does this sound like without all the effects? Let me just bypass these. Kind of terrible because that weird low end stuff is in there. But yeah, cutting that out. It's just kind of an interesting pluck sound. Yeah, it's a sound font. Let's see where it's from. Let's see where you're from, mate. Oh, it's not even a sound. It's just a Logic thing. So that also continues here, I believe, with probably a lot more reverb. No, I'm remembering this as I go. This thing it's an actual metal pan. I can't remember the actual name of it though. It's a metal drum. Yeah, this is an instrument inside of Logic. I love the sound of these things. And anything chimey, I mean, there's a reason I'm called Chime. I'm going to like it. Yeah, so we got this thing. And it's really just that with a bunch of just reverb and delay. What you'll notice from the MIDI is that it doesn't loop exactly on beat. I think it's a polymeter rhythm in that it's playing a loop that's shorter than the bar. There are people that can explain this a lot better than me. I think there's an Andrew Wong video explaining polymeter and polyrhythm and stuff. But yeah, because it has this kind of going up for 6 notes, but then repeating before the end of the bar, that creates a really nice effect with the stereo delay, because the stereo delay is delaying on dotted notes here. So you get this sort of hypnotic looping and just like the notes kind of spilling over each other sort of thing. Yeah, and I really like creating those kind of textures. And then it looks like here I got some ambience taken from that metal pan that I've used as a background layer. So let's kind of open this out and see what it originally sounded like. There you go. It's just the reverb from the end of that. You know, really nice tone. So I'm just like, I'm going to use that. Often when I'm looking for something to fill a gap or, you know, fill out the background of a tune, I'll look at the textures I already have from like elsewhere. It could be the intro, the breakdown, whatever, right? And by using the same kind of like textures throughout, it feels like a more cohesive track. Because I think early on, I was struggling because I was just making the drop ridiculously different from the intro. And I was struggling to create that like cohesion between all of the elements. But these kind of things where you take one part of your track and turn it into something that's a completely different tool, but using the same flavor, that's some good shit. And that really helps with cohesion. So this just seems like it's an octave above this one, just to fill it out even more. And let's hear this in context as well. You can barely hear it, but you can probably hear the difference when I take it away. And with. Very, very subtle. Yeah, but anyway, let's move on. We got the Bitcrushed version of the metal pan, and yeah, I used a lot of Bitcrusher because it sounds super fizzy to me anyway. And yeah, this looks to be combined with the original, so you get a little bit of the dry, a little bit of the natural metal pan, but a little bit of the fizzy version as well. Ends up being a really nice texture. And let's see what else we got. We got a frequency shifted version. Yeah, so frequency shifter is OP. This is literally just the same thing. You can barely hear it when it's frequency shifted that far down. But yeah, this is kind of my way of gradually introducing this element during the intro, because let's take this out of the intro and see how it sounds, right? Sounds fine, to be honest, because there's a lot of other things gluing that transition together, but let's hear it with that extra element. Really subtle, but those things add up in a transition. And when you want something smooth rather than like impactful, like this sort of transition where it just kind of swells up into a more energetic section, putting those kind of details in really do add up. Yeah, so what else have we got? We got piano chords. Yeah, so this is just a simple piano, probably a Logic piano. So I didn't bother to humanize this in any way. You know, often when I use piano MIDI, I'll make sure like all of these notes are different, like velocities and stuff, and they all kind of like start at different times to make it feel like a person's actually playing the piano. But for this, I just wanted a nice on-beat piano texture. So yeah, I wanted everything to be completely in time with everything else, especially when there's like drums that are bang on grid. Yeah, I just wanted these to fit into that kind of, to fit that job basically. You see I've just reversed one of those chords. Yeah, and then you can see here, I think the lower pianos are coming in. So you've got this happening. So we have the piano chords continuing their sequence, but ducking in and out of a higher or lower register depending on what else is happening in the tune. So this kind of follows on from what I was talking about in the energy levels tutorial, where I was explaining that it's really helpful to have these dips and troughs in energy where things get a little bit more chill and then they surge and go back, and that's how you stop your track from feeling really flat and just the same the whole way through. Yeah, so this is really part of my technique for that, is have it dip from low to high, have all of the elements interacting with each other at the same time. Yeah, so I believe this piano basically started when I was like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to transition to more of a chord sequence here? So I had this section. And in fact, this little idea for this B section of the drop was started in a completely different project, because initially it was a different tune idea. Yeah, like completely different. And I was like, what can I do for the B section of this? And I was like, oh, I've got a project with a similar kind of feel in the same key. Let's grab the stems from that, throw it into here and see if it works. And it does. But yeah, back to the piano, I was like, wouldn't it be cool? Because this track kind of flip-flops between like F minor and C minor a little bit. The intro and stuff is in C minor, but when it hits the drop, it just kind of holds on the F root note. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool at this point for it to like smash back into that C minor chord sequence? So you'll notice that everything changes from being on that one note. Yeah, so this piano takes us into C minor quite nicely. Do, 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 do. Yeah, so that's where the idea for it came from. I was just like, let's make it a piano. Here's the MIDI. And it feels like that tension that was going throughout the entire drop like finally releases, and it kind of feels a little bit more uplifting. So that's the piano. And what else we got? We got a glockenspiel. Yeah, so this, I think the idea for this came off the piano, because I had the MIDI for this piano chord bit. And I really liked that rising little chord sequence I created. And I was like, I want to use that for more things. So I grabbed this glockenspiel. That kind of sounds really weird at the top there. I think, I originally had a kind of bass note for this as well, but I decided to mute those. Glockenspiel, any of these kind of really bright, colorful sounds I knew was going to fit with all the other textures I've been putting in. And glockenspiels, they're allowed in Soda World. Get a ton of reverb on that, and then you have this really nice kind of transition from one part of the drop to another. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I made this piano bit here, and then I went back and I was like, let's use that rising piano MIDI again and flesh it out a little bit more. So we ended up with this. by the way, like I know you guys have been requesting like how to write melodies tutorial and like how to write chord sequences and that kind of thing. Thing is, I'm not a music theory person at all. So all of this is just me going, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, and just figuring out what I want to create. So for sure I can do a tutorial on that, but first I got to figure out how the hell I'm gonna describe and explain how my head works with that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hopefully I'll figure it out for you guys. Yeah, so Glockenspiel, ASMR sprinkles. Okay, I love this sound a lot. So this thingy, let's go into the MIDI. Yes, I did mouse in all of these notes. Okay, this is all the way to the left for now. Basically what I've done is I've taken this and I've put this all to the left, put all this to the right, and then I've delayed this sound a little bit so we get a crazy stereo effect. That's like the widest stereo effect you can achieve. And there aren't any phase issues because the notes are playing at different times. Really nice little sort of hack thing you can do. Yeah, and it's just a little bit more tickly than using like a dimension expander or whatever, because you have the notes playing sort of slightly out of time with each other. So let's dive into this sound. I will bet you anything, it's really basic. Yep, it's a square wave. And that's it. That's literally it. It's a square wave and it decays. Nothing else going on in here. It's all in the MIDI notes. So how the hell did I do this? I'm pretty sure what I did was I had this stretched out a lot further and I just started spamming notes. Like I was playing the track in the background, spamming notes that fit in the scale just all over the place, just to create this kind of randomized texture. And you wouldn't necessarily get this out of using an arpeggiator, because an arpeggiator is pretty formulaic. You know, it's always going to follow a certain pattern, and you can add some randomized elements. But yeah, for me, I really like just actually doing all of the notes myself. So that's what I did. But yeah, I bet if we stretch this out, we can kind of hear more of what it sounded like as I was creating it. There you go. And to be honest, I probably had this like lower down as well. Like this sort of thing. Yeah. And from there, we just make it super fast, super high pitched. Do that left and right business and then sort of fade it in as a background element. And you end up with this really nice twinkly texture. Sprinkly texture. You could just barely hear that in the stereo image. But we put the sound to good use elsewhere as well, because we have this situation. Oh boy. Yeah, so we have the, I guess, original sample, and we've got a frequency shifted version of the sample and resonated on the, what I thought was the root note when I was doing this, F. Putting them together creates a situation. Because, right, here's the thing. When you frequency shift something, I'm going to use a slightly different frequency shifter. I'm going to use the Melder one because it's got a dry wet knob. So I can frequency shift this. Oh, let's take the resonator off. That's already a sick sound that already sounds like fizzy, poppy, watery, sodery. And I was like, yes, this sounds great. But yeah, when you use a frequency shifter and you shift the frequency and you put the dry wet to 50% or thereabouts, what you're getting is the non-shifted sound with the frequency shifted sound mixed together. And what happens when you do that is you get some crazy phasing, which I'm not going to represent in any capacity using this sound. Let me grab something else. Let's grab a bass, please. A nice long bass sound. That'll do. Okay, yeah, let's use this on here. Pop this on here. Put this over here. Okay, so this effect only happens when you're shifting by a little teeny tiny amount. And what happens is the original sound starts phasing with the very slightly shifted signal, and you get this kind of sweeping, rotating, crazy, wiggly, wobbly sound, which is a joy. But what's happening with this, because we've got the dry signal here, and we've got the frequency shifted signal, like this, and then we've had another effect added, which is the resonator, and we're mixing it with the dry signal. We have it sort of phasing, sort of, but also we got the resonator there in there messing things up. And we end up with this crazy, glittery, sprinkly magic stuff because it's phasing but resonating. It's a good time. So yeah, that's how I made that. And yeah, let's see what I ended up using that for. We have over here. Yeah, here we go. Same sound I just made. Frequency shifting again on top of that, and also automating the mix of reverb. So what you're getting is it kind of coming closer and further away from you, and also frequency shifting, which creates this crazy stereo wide ASMR twinkly shivery effect. Originally, that just came from Square Waves. So you can see why I enjoy sound designing outside of the box being the original synthesizer, because with some really like simple starting elements and a few effects, you can create some really crazy stuff. So that's that texture. And I absolutely love that texture. I think I also included that in the Melodic Rhythm Volume 1 sample pack. And yeah, so this shows up later on as well during this section. ASMR sprinkles, here we go. So I have a version there that maintains its original tone and it just kind of holds on a couple notes. And then here we have the frequency shifted version, and together. So it's kind of still a little bit melodic, but a lot of it is more kind of atonal and creating more of a ASMR sound effect sort of thing. And then it resonates for this section. But yeah, this ends up being a really, really nice section because I was looking for a background element for this, and then I was playing around with this sound design idea, and I was like, this is going to be perfect. Because I needed something, and I went off with the concept of making something bubbly and sparkly and fizzy, and I went, yes, I've made a cool sound. And I came back and was like, let's try it in context. It works perfectly. So without it, it's fine. But with these glimmery things, that's just a good time, man. Anyway, moving on. I've spent enough time on those twinkly bits. I'm just particularly proud of those. Now, we got some little vocal chops. Let's see our original vocal sampling. Let's get our original thing to see where this came from. There we go. That's what it is. It's a really weird thing at the start of that. I think I time stretched it and it's acting a little bit weird. Yeah, I really like putting these little vocals in. Gives it just that little bit of human touch sort of thing. And yeah, so stretch that out so that I had more of those individual notes to work with. Yeah, so I cut off that kind of weird grungy stuff and just took this little... Yeah, and then here, yes, I did. Flex pitched this so it kind of jumps up in pitch to fit the notes I wanted to go for. Yeah, and this actually is backed up by some crazy pop-in sounds. Where are those? There we go. Yeah. So we got that can pop from earlier, and we've got some fizzy stuff. I think that's the same slurpy stuff I was layering with the basses over here. But yeah, you can just populate the track with these tiny little bits that they're just a treat to anybody who listens multiple times and can pick up on these tiny little things. I love that kind of music. I love it. So that's what I want to create. Yeah, so I just accentuated those syncopated kind of da-da-da notes with the pop. Without it, it feels like a little bit loose, but with that, it just keeps it kind of weirdly on beat, even though it's off beat. Now we got some background vocals. Just repeated with a bunch of reverb on. I think that's a fully wet reverb signal. Same again, but with more reverb. Same thing where I'm using textures from elsewhere to populate the track. What's this? Yeah, just a little reverb note there. That was literally because I wanted something to lead into that note. Yeah. It's part of that. It's part of that note is being hit by several points in that, but I wanted... So I just needed something to hit that note. Yeah, so that's that's what I ended up using. Cool. Oh, this is an absolute throwback of a sound here. So this is one of the first patches I created from scratch in Massive when I got it in 2013, maybe. I kind of unknowingly recreated what Disasterpiece did on a lot of the Fez soundtrack. Fez is an indie game. If you haven't listened to that soundtrack, it's good. Basically, square, sine, saw, 3 different kinds of waves, and they're all slightly detuned from each other. I got a daft filter that's just kind of creating a little bit more interest, and a double notch, I suppose. Let's see what they're doing. Yeah. So they're actually applied to kind of the attack. So we have this kind of swell of the sound as the notes hit. A lot of the sound, though, comes from this inbuilt massive reverb, which has this really nice just like wall of sound quality where it just makes whatever the hell you're putting into it just a pad immediately. Because, I mean, without this, it's okay, but that makes it a good time. Yeah, a little bit of distortion on there. Just a very, very basic, man. Calm down. A tiny bit of bit crusher on there as well. And yeah, and then later I looked at a tutorial from, not a tutorial, like a walkthrough from Disasterpiece on how he made the music for Fez, and he used Massive, and he was like, this reverb is what created a lot of the sound. So I was like, oh damn, hit the nail on the head there. So just a couple notes really on that. You can see I've started some of these earlier because I wanted the attack of it to hit at a certain point on beat. So yeah. And you can see here, I've just automated the high end in that like introductory note. I've just pushed that up so it kind of comes from the distance a little bit more. And then as it peters out, I also like remove the high end there. Similarly, we have on here automation of this flanger coming in. So when it hits its final note, it starts flanging and going all crazy dimension bendy stuff. I'm a professional. Yes, so that's cool. And I use that there as well. And at the end, it works in all of those contexts, and it doesn't get tiring because each time you hear it, it's accompanied by completely different elements. So yeah, does its job. Next up, Icicle Forebode lead. Oh, it's foreboding because this is the drop melody. This is something I'll do quite a lot where I have a drop idea, and if it involves a melody or a bass or something, I'll tease it leading into the drop so that it doesn't sound like it's just kind of come out of nowhere. You're already sort of familiar with it. You can almost like hum along with it the first time you hear it because you've had it teased by another element. Yeah, so, and this is one of my favorite leads is this icicle lead thing, which I believe is a pluck that was just a little bit noisy that I just reverberated. And yeah, I now use that all the time. And it should be in here somewhere. There we go. It's in my sample pack. But for this one, I also just backed it up with very simple sine pluck with a bunch of reverb on. So it's a little bit more tonal. Yeah, which ends up sounding real nice. And you can see that it does exactly the same melody before. Well, it does the exact same thing where it copies the melody from the second drop before the second drop. Yeah, fun. Okay, what else have we got? Jesus, there's a lot of stuff in this project. I'm just realizing. Got another pluck. We got, yeah, more of a fizzy pluck. Again, we're going with the fizzy theme. I don't know if this was like a splice sample or something. So this is an additional element to add to change up this section from this section of the breakdown. And yeah, does its fizzy job, and it kind of just copies the chord sequence really in terms of what notes are being played there. And then you've got an extra big note on this because it's kind of competing. You can see in terms of volume. This is competing with that big old snare. And like that fez pad swelling up and all the other stuff that's being added there. So yeah, having this kind of fluid nature to all the elements where they're all kind of reacting to each other all at once. Like the energy levels are going in the same direction for everything. Makes your track feel more alive and less like it's been programmed, you know? So here I've just got, for that like suction thing, I've just put a little bit of tremolo on this. So you have this kind of cool stereo effect on this. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, this pluck is part of the snare for this section because I took the snare that we used earlier in the track and pitched it and made it into a melodic element. That one. Because it's tonal, I was like, why not? I did a similar thing on Game Break with Wales during the breakdown as well, where I was like using a snare as a snare, but also the main melody of the breakdown. Yeah, so that fizz pluck thingy is playing the same notes as that, and it's just ringing out kind of further for this second part of the breakdown, because you'll see here it's mostly dry. But then at this point, it opens out. And we've even got a little bit of fizz on there. Any excuse. Yeah, so moving on, where were we? We were at about here. Shimmer ambience. Let's see what this thing is. Aha. I believe this is the metal pan that we used earlier with a ton of reverb, possibly. It's basically another one of those, I've created a pad out of other elements already in the track, which is kind of a benefit of writing part of your track that's going to happen later on before the intro, because I made a load of stuff and then I was like, okay, what's the intro going to be? And then I made this out of the stuff I'd already made, which ends up introducing the track. So yeah, you don't have to work chronologically in the slightest. Let's see what this is. Same sound, stuttered with a tremolo, just kind of like a square wave sort of thing, and flanged, just as an extra little texture. And also this breakdown section generally throughout it focuses primarily on 16th notes, so to have something else populating those 16th notes and keeping it chugging along, it works quite well. Yeah, and in fact, we have something like a bass pluck that we're going to get to in a sec. Unlike every other 16th note, and this is the thing that really competes with that. So you get like this hitting and then the bass pluck. So it's like creates a really nice effect between the two. And again, everything comes to a stop there. If this continued throughout that, it would lessen the effect of this little stop here. Yeah, so say for this section, I just kept that on. Let me just cut this so that it... Aren't you working, cut tool? There we go. You might not be able to notice that, but that's the sort of thing I would notice and go, you could have created a nicer kind of shifting effect in energy if that stopped before it started again in this next piece. It's another one of those things that just really ends up adding up to a general feeling over the course of a track. It's a lot of the reason why I work in audio, so I can cut these tiny little pieces I just don't want and get right in there and make sure there's nothing spilling over everything else, you know. Right, we got this crystal pluck thing. Again, ton of reverb on a tiny pluck. And I believe that's a Kirby sound font. Let's have a look. It's a general MIDI sound font. Yeah. Yep, I use those a lot because they're from video games and I like video games. But yeah, there's that sound. Just more little textures, really. And then we've got this tin whistle. Let's see what this is like. About to hurry off into the forest there. Yes, so this... I mean, it's a Celtic tin whistle. It's a Logic thing, just following the chords. I don't know. I like the sound of it in the context. So that's how it came to be. More of a background element again. We've got a frequency shifter on here. I'm not sure why. It's for some other part of the track. Have we also got this here? Yeah, so we've got a slightly different like MIDI line to follow what's happening there. Same element though. And the fact that I've brought this tin whistle back, it's in the intro as well. I've brought it back before we loop back into this, which is practically the same section as the intro. Creates a smoother transition there because you're getting a sense that we're returning because of these elements popping in the background. So what the hell is this? This is an element I thought of adding, but scrapped, I guess. To be honest, I quite like that. I would probably continue that if I went back to this project. All right, we are on basses. Let me open this out. What's going on over here, lads? What you can see here is the remnants, the ancient artifacts of the melodic rhythm tutorial that you can also see on Patreon. And so this is me creating all the sparkle stuff. I'm going to leave that because I've already covered it because I made it on camera. Yeah, so you can go check out that tutorial if you want to figure out the main bass. For the purposes of this, I was just like, I just need the main bass on one stem and I need that out of the way so I can just focus on everything else I got to add, which is apparently way too many channels. Also meant I could do things like that where I cut up the audio for that entire bass instead of like all the individual things that make up that bass. And here for the second drop, we have some backup layers for this as well. So this is a very simple serum patch, I believe. Let's have a look. It's a square wave with a saw wave, an octave up, and some detune, and a little wobbly thing with this low pass, and get some nice cool textures out of the flanger here. But really, yeah, it's a backup element. I just want it to supplement what we've already got with the main bass. Yeah, so it feels like more of a chord altogether. I also, for this main bass on the second drop, I think I went back into this stuff. Yeah, you can see me doing it here. I went back into this stuff because I was like, I've got to use that same bass, but with different notes. And it was a bit of a pain. But yeah, I went back, changed all the notes to exactly what I wanted for my new melody and chord sequence. And yeah, I went from there and added this and added reverb to this because I wanted this to be a fuller drop. Whereas the first drop was kind of like, I was happy for it to be staccato. This needed to be grander because it needed to feel like the kind of crescendo at the end of the track that gets really epic and cool. So that's why there's reverb in here, to fill in those gaps that were previously there before. Let's see how that sounds without it. It's not so bad here because I've also got like other shit like the ambience that I showed you earlier. But on that first note, that feels very, very dry and I wanted it to be big. So that's what that reverb's doing. More main bass stuff. More main bass stuff. Yeah, let's see what this is. Ah, those are those other little basses I made from the melodic rhythm tutorial. And then I've got frequency shifted versions of the main bass, which just sounds fucking sweet. Let's see our automation here. Yeah. Just frequency shifted it. It was actually quite tricky because I needed to get a sub that fit with that, but it was difficult to tell what note is being hit. It's just kind of rising, and when you frequency shift stuff, it kind of messes the pitch up. So I just kind of earballed it, just made the pitch up like that, and kind of finagled it until it sounded decent. Main lead. Yeah. So I originally didn't have this main lead on here. You can hear that there is like a twinkly sound as part of that main bass that's following that da, 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 main riff. But that was nowhere near strong enough for me. I wanted that to be a much more prominent feature of the drop. So it doesn't just feel like it's hitting the same chord every time. So I added this thing. And this thing is like an accordion or some shit. Oh, wait. That's just a square wave. And this thing? That's a Mario Kart 64 whistle, if I ever did hear one. Yeah, Mario Kart 64, I got it right. Yeah, it's the pan flute from Mario Kart 64. Very nice. And also some accordion thing from Ocarina of Time, I think. Kind of just adds this fun little texture to that main lead that's just a square. Oh, sounds like I actually, I put some chorus on that to make it a little bit more than just a square. It's a little bit wiggly. You can see it in here. After I went for the MIDI, I decided to bounce this down to audio as I usually do, and just refine the kind of punctuation of these notes because I think they were just reverberating out a little bit too much. I don't know. Yeah, I just wanted that to be really tight. So this lead and the main bass felt like one big thing, and it didn't feel like separate layers. And a really good way to do that is to make sure there's absolutely no points where like one part is playing when another part isn't. They have to be playing the same goddamn same thing. And then it just feels like one big old tasty chunkin' wob with lots of texture to it. This stuff, I believe I made on screen in the Melodic Rhythm tutorial. So I'll skip over that. And then we got these pip pop leads. I don't know if I made these in that tutorial. I'm not sure if I did, but they're pretty simple as well. Again, it's massive. Again, it's a square wave. We got a little bit like pitching at the start. Yeah, we got pitching up and down. I don't know. It ended up making it nice and kind of wiggly and plucky, and I liked it. So, bit of chorus on there, bit of like bright white noise. And then I've got, you can see left channel, center channel, right channel. You can see they're panned very slightly to have this like sweep across. I could have just automated the pan, but I wanted each of the individual notes to just be sat in their own place rather than traveling like that. No one's gonna notice, but this is this is what happens when you've been producing for over 10 years. So you got those little pippity poppity leads. Also got one of those notes backing up the can pop thing that we covered a fortnight ago over here. Yeah, it's all coming together, man. It's all coming together. Hopefully you can kind of see my process for that, where, you know, I'm going back to elements coming forwards in time. This little pip pop lead is just good for those little syncopated moments. So that's what I ended up using that for. Oh, 5 stabbers. So this was from that other project that I mentioned for this B section. I was really liking the contrast between the quarter notes of these kind of wobs in the background, these yoy things. This is more of the main sound of that. And these quintuplets. So as you can see here, there we go. Yeah, we've got a space where 4 beats normally would be, or I guess 8 or that sort of thing. We got 5. Now, of course, because we got our sidechaining on there, we don't really hear that first one. But if I play it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have that kind of cool, kind of jaunty thing, and that's definitely being used a lot in rhythm at the moment. I thought that was a cool texture, and also to add that in with the more consistent texture of the twinkly, sprinkly bits we put in, and the quarter notes, it makes this into a really kind of rhythmically dense sort of section of the track, even though it feels very simple because everything's looping within each bar. What else we got? We got bubbles and stuff. So this thing I actually synthesized in Serum, and then it's got convolution reverb on, because of course it does. Let me actually pull up that patch and kind of show you it a little bit, because I believe a patch or a very similar patch is in here. Here we go, bubbler. Let's turn this down in case it's monstrously loud. Here we go. So this, yeah, let's go back to square one. I was playing around with the wind chimes noise and like rapidly changing the pitch of this. I was like, oh, it's kind of bubbly. Why don't I just try it with like a sine wave? And yeah, move the wavetable position for this. And this actually... This is actually kind of like a synced wave for some reason. I don't know where the hell I got this from. Anyway, I'm changing what is effectively the sync there, as you can see. Yeah. And with these like crazy stepped LFOs, I just made this, and you can see the rate is on 8th notes there. And yeah, this is controlling kind of the wobble of it. And this is controlling the bubbliness. Yeah, you get this really bubbly texture. I was like, oh, damn. And then there are other things at play. We've got the low pass filter controlled by this to make it wobbly. If this was off, it'd be less sort of contained. A little bit of distortion. We got this phaser, which is creating the nice stereo field sort of effect, and the depth and frequency modulated by this bubbly situation here, but even more bubbliness. And then we've got, yeah, a little bit of detune in the hyperdimension. for even more stereo effect. And then flange filter. This just kind of thickens things up because there's even more wiggling going on with the cutoff here. Yeah, you can see if I kept it pretty static, it starts becoming tonal, but if I make the cutoff like really wide, it's so rapid that it can't land on any tone at any time. So that's how I make bubbly sounds in Serum. I think I might have turned the flanger off for that, but let's kind of recreate this sort of thing here. So I should be able to find basically the exact impulse I used. Just these little sine chords. There we go, that's sounding pretty similar. And then if I turn the dry down and the wet up on that, maybe bring this in a little bit so it cuts off a bit faster. There you go. You've got your magic bubbly sounds. These are a little bit higher, but yeah, that's basically what I did for that, right? And then we got this other ethereal sound. In fact, yeah, that definitely sounds like it's maybe the main bass put through that convolution reverb that I just used with that sine chord. And this is also teased in the intro. So you can see how I've made a lot of effort to make the track feel cohesive, because we're foreshadowing stuff in the intro that appears later, and then it appears in the outro as well. We have these multiple ideas that are coming together in different formations as the track goes through, and they play different roles as the track goes through as well. So we have this here with our bubbly sound, and this is like a reverberated version of the bubbly sound. Yeah, a bit of delay on there as well. And, oh yeah, let's see what I actually did. Basically the same kind of deal, but I've changed this up a little bit. I'll play the thing. Space Designer has a little flourish sample in here, apparently. See how this sounds? That is nice. A stereo delay, and then I'm filtering it in gradually with automation. That ethereal wob that I just showed you as well is under that as well. Sounds real good. Now we've got another layer. It's just a very simple yoi sound. I think I've even gotten rid of the patch. Yeah, just one of those typical bit crushed yoi things, but with a bit of convolution reverb on. Just to add a little bit of fizz to the top of this, because I think before I added this, yeah, you can hear it just fizzing away at the top there. And then we got this UK wob, which is, a very similar patch to what you've probably heard on like Face Punch, Potions, the Tritone EP. Very simple, kind of like Oliver style wob, where you've got a square and a saw and up 7 semitones, so a fifth, and it's wobbing with a low pass filter. Basically, I did a UK wobble tutorial, didn't I? So you can probably go check that out to make practically that exact wobble. Bit of reverb coming in on parts of that. For this, yeah, I'm doing some stuff there. I got a macro changing, and the macro, let's see what that's controlling. The macro is controlling the sync on this. It's also pushing the filter up so it opens up further each time it wobbles. And that looks like it, actually. Yeah, it looks like it. And I think there's some reverb being added on there as well. So just take it from this small place to a bigger place pretty rapidly. And then this, I believe, is just the same sound, but flattened out. Yeah, we got a bit of delay on this. Basically, just repeating it. I've just done like a manual echo, and I've got like full room verb, yeah, all the way wet. So you have the wob sounding like it's right in front of you, and then sounding like it's here, and it's constantly switching. It's a similar thing to what Eptic did on Shadow People recently, that Monster Cat single. Basically, that sort of thing. It's from very old UK dubstep tunes, I feel like. Okay, we are approaching the end. This has been a meaty walkthrough. This hypergrowl thing, I know a lot of people have been enjoying this. I've got like specific tweets of people going, whoa, that hypergrowl. So there's part of it. A lot of it comes from the convolution reverb. So this thing, if you want to make this kind of sound, go check out AU5's hypergrowl tutorial. I basically followed it like word for word and came up with this. Some of the more interesting things about this is like I've put the pitch bend here so it goes. I'm not sure why it's not pitching down there, even though it's automating. It's a little bit weird, but yeah. And you can tell that I've removed quite a lot of the low end there, and it's because this is quite a high octave sound. It's like an octave higher than, where my sub usually would be. And so you get that really nice high sub, meaty, like right in there sort of sub that just pops up and then goes deep again. Which is there, and I've just kind of recreated the bend on that with the sub here. And yeah, so that's why it's cut so high up, because the sub's going from down here to up here. So I don't need any of that information from the original sound interfering with the sub. But additionally, we have this mega verb, which makes it sound massive. You can see I've just, put some reverb and then OTT and then EQ out the low end. That's a very typical thing I'll do. And then these are just fading in each time. That kind of like eliminate style thing where a thing goes and then goes. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. Yeah, an element goes from being small to this like massive like space filling effect, and you get that kind of suction thing going on. It's one of those. And then this is where it all comes together, baby. So I believe I created 3 different chords with impulses. In fact, I could probably check here. So I split each of these notes into their own channels and applied a different vibrato chip chord, it looks like. Yeah, I just made like a little chord to use as the impulse. Had the 3 different chords that would go together with what the hypergrowl's root notes were playing, and introduced them one at a time, each on their own channel. And it sounds mythical. So, yeah, really like that sort of thing. And then you can see I've bounced this into audio. Just so I can cut off those reverb tails and they're not spilling into each other. And also to add a bit of cheeky frequency shift to the end of this one. So you get this kind of like dip thing. Yeah, and then you put it all together. In fact, no, you don't. You do more things, apparently. I think I was mixing this with the original growl sound, and it was just sounding a little bit bunched up. So I wanted the melodic elements, the kind of chordy elements of this growl to be much more stereo. So you got the growl in front of you, and then you have this mystic stereo chordy business going on. So you can see I've just applied a little bit more reverb, a bit more OTT to make it pop on the sides, and then I've done my old left-right trick I've used a bunch of times. And then you can see why I end up with a lot of channels, because that is like one backup sound, and that's how many channels I've used, because I use a lot of audio and I like printing things onto new channels. But yeah, that creates that lovely layer there, and then all together, and I'll apply the sub bass as well. Really nice sound. Yeah, so that's that. And we've only got a couple things left. We've got a Reese bass. So this is a lovely, crispy, juicy Reese bass that I originally made for Lifelong, actually, my drum bass tune. I believe, let's have a look at it. Yeah, triangle waves, 30 cents up and down, which is like the traditional original Reese bass was made like that. So I was like, well, I'm gonna do that. A little bit of dimension expander, but a lot of the texture comes from what else is going on here, right? So I believe that frequency shifter isn't doing anything, yeah, until later. Serum effects, let's have a look what's going on in here. This is what it originally sounds like. Oh, we've also got white noise in there. Yeah, so similarly to the frequency shifter, like that slightly shifted thing, when you pitch something up and down like this, you're gonna have, you're detuning them, and they are gonna start also doing that wibbly wobbly phase business. So that's what you're hearing there. A lovely pulsating of a traditional Reese bass. And then we need to cook this in a lovely Serum Effects and iZotope Trash 2 cooking pot to make it greasy. It's getting late at this point. Yeah, I mean, let me show you. Look, it's 1 a.m. This has gone on for a long time. Right, anyway, so we've got more width actually coming from Serum Effects. We've got the hyper dimension thing, and we're not actually using the dimension part, we're just using the hyper part, all the way detuned and dialing a bit of that in. So you can see without that, pretty central, and then creates even more detuning and even more stereo width, which is going to get just oh so crispy when we apply a bit of this distortion from Trash 2. Well, that's the other thing. I have, just a bit of portmanteau, I think it's called, a glide to the notes so they kind of like slide into each other. And you'll notice as well with Reese bass like this, because they are two triangle waves that are detuned, the higher pitch, the faster those kind of wobbly cycles will go, and the lower pitch, the slower. Yeah, which is kind of another unique characteristic of the Reese bass, and that's, yeah, it just kind of adds a lot more like movement and just Reese loveliness, which is just accentuated by this fuzz that I've added in iZotope Trash. Yeah, that just happened to be the nicest texture I found in iZotope Trash for this thing. And then you can just see me cutting off a bit of the high end there. So that's that really. And then let's go onto this channel. Yeah, I didn't add anything. Just put it in audio so I could like do a little bit of side chaining for the build. And then you can see I automated the frequency shifter there, which effectively creates a riser effect out of this Reese at the last second. And we use the Reese a little bit more in this section. And in the outro, oh, I haven't gone over this sound, whatever the hell this is. This to-doom-dom-boom. Let's see what this is. I think it should be in effects. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I totally missed this. This is a slam sound effect, and it's just frequency shifted. Without it, it sounds like this. Yeah, and then we've got a non-frequency shifted version that does that weird wibbly thing because of the phasing. Yeah, I don't know. Just a fun sound. Anyway, Reese bass, we got our donker. This is what plays during the breakdown. So this is actually kind of weirdly out of time. You can see it's playing on every other 16th note, which creates this sort of cool syncopated effect. Like I could put this maybe back in time, and let's see what that sounds like. That actually completely switches it to just an eighth note beat, an eighth note rhythm. But because of it being offset, you get this nice 16th note rhythm. But it's still followable because, you know, that might be a little bit chaotic if your drums were syncopated as well and everything. But because the drums are so simple, it's just kick, hat, snare, hat, kick. You're free to do some crazy business with everything else you're using. And we're practically there. The sub bass is the same sub bass I use for everything. Practically just a sine wave with a little bit of smooth square. And you can see here. Oh, It's a little last-minute complexer. What a perfect thing to end off on, because I'm pretty sure the next tutorial I'm going to be recording is how to make these. And yeah, this is a perfect place to kind of showcase one of my strategies for it. I've been saying the whole time throughout this breakdown that I'm reusing parts of the track all over the place, and complexers, these kind of complex melodic glitchy bits that I put in basically like all my tunes, this is like the exact place where I do this a ton. So we got all of these things. You could probably recognize some of these sounds from earlier in the track or even later in the track. Let's go through. That's the little ping pong pluck from earlier. You can see I've just looped this to kind of have that glitch effect. And let's see what else we got. You can see I've actually just bounced down practically the whole track. Maybe what I'll do sometimes is I'll mute the drums on a track entirely and then just bounce the whole thing down and then start chopping up bits to use as textures. And there's 2 pieces of that. And then what's this? I think that's actually from the intro. Yeah. There you go. Just taking that tiny piece, bit crushed, OTT. And then it's just a kind of case of finagling this until it sounds how you want it. It sounds totally in universe for this track. And yeah, it sounds real good in action. Whew. Well, there we go. That is every single channel I used to create Soda World. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope it has demonstrated how you can use a theme to kind of accentuate basically every part of your track. You know, there are other tunes of mine where I've gone even further into that and like combined it with other things. Bloom is a really good example of that, and I might do a track breakdown for that as well soon, where I took flowers, like natural elements, wood, and how flowers are represented sonically in video games, usually by like harps and stuff. All of that stuff, mix that with lo-fi hip-hop and melodic rhythm into this nice big soupy pot. And that kind of theme of flowers and the theme of the 2 kind of subgenres, I ended up writing that track in like couple of days because it just gave me a ton of ideas of how I could combine everything into this soup. It's much easier to make a track like that rather than sitting down and going, today I'm going to make dubstep, because it's like, okay, well, Jesus, man, where do I start? I just start messing around with stuff. If you've got a theme, you've got concept, you've got other things to combine that with. It could be genres, you know, all the other stuff I talked about in the Signature Sound video. It all just comes together really quickly, and it allows you to have these light bulb moments of, oh yeah, I could do this. And then you end up finishing the track in no time. And it's super fun, and your track ends up sounding really cool and unique, because who the hell is making melodic rhythm about fizzy drinks with ASMR elements and all the other combination of things that I've put into this track in terms of sound design techniques. So hopefully that's been a useful overview. And yeah, I just want to say, as always, if you've watched this far, by the way, thank you very much. It's really inspiring to know that people like you watch these videos and are willing to support me and learn from me and what I've done. And it's an absolute pleasure to be able to share all of these kind of tips with you guys. Just wanted to say thank you very much for your support. You're amazing. And hopefully this has been useful. I'll see you on the Discord. And if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, either on YouTube or on the Patreon post for this, if you need anything clarifying. Cool. All right. I'm going to go to sleep. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next tutorial. Bye.